Welcome again to the Statewide Financial Management Services User Group meeting for May of 2024. We're very appreciative that you could all take the time to join us, as I've said earlier. We think this is some very important information. We only cover it once a year, so it's always a good idea to review these topics before we get into the thick of year end. Normally, Fabiola Flores joins us and goes over our agenda with us, but she was unable to join us this morning in that capacity. So I was lucky enough to get the honor to go over it with you all. We'll do a brief review of our agenda here. We're going to start with the Workday payroll update. Changes continue in this arena, and we want to bring you the latest. So that's where we'll start. We're going to cover the year-end roll program coming up at the end of June. This is the program that sets the beginning balances for the upcoming fiscal year 25. So it's a good program to review as we get set into, can you believe, fiscal year 25 here in just a month. The year-end close program will follow that year-end roll. It'll be at the end of August. And that program creates transactions to close nominal accounts into equity accounts for fiscal year 24. It's kind of a final closure of the year. And there are some agency responsibilities for that program, so we're going to be going over those responsibilities. They include those responsibilities in ordering some specific DAFR reports, and we will have some recommendations to make ordering those a little easier, perhaps at year end, in our section on requesting year-end reports. After year-end reports, we'll take a look at this year's year-end closing guidelines. This is a document offered every year. A lot of people used to refer to it as the yellow pages back in the day. If you remember that, you can give me a thumbs up. That's back in the day when you actually got the hard copy given to you at the user group, and it was printed on yellow paper, hence the name, the yellow pages. Yay, people remember. I'm not the only old person here. No. All right, after we go over those closing guidelines and reacquaint ourselves with those, we're going to have a section on the D31 Comptroller GL account. That profile has some information on it that is year-end processing related. So it will be our R-Stars screen highlight this month. After the screen highlight, we have some expiring warrant due diligence reminders. That's going to be coming up here soon. And so we want to cover what the process is. The R-Stars report highlight this month is the DAFR 6530, the trial balance by fund by general ledger account. That might be very helpful as you're going through year end as well. After that, I have a period of time to encourage everyone to consider if R-Stars training should be part of your career development path. And then we will review the warrant expedite process that is available to agencies in more urgent situations. So not necessarily an everyday thing, but something we want to show you the process if you have the occasion that you need to get a warrant quickly. Finally, Aaron Wallace has graciously agreed to close the meeting out, or be the last topic anyway, with an OB and Data Mart update. I know if you're like me, we can always use those. So he will be the last item on our agenda, not the last on our minds, but that'll be a great update to have. So with that agenda in mind, I am going to go ahead and welcome Jennifer Taylor, and she'll start us off on the payroll project update. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks. Okay, so things that we've talked about before and you're starting to, well, you've been seeing for a couple months is the changes to the document number. We're staying consistent with some of the additional entries that we're having to do right now, which we'll talk about later. So in even years, which we are now, there is an alpha run indicator, and odd years, there's a numeric. Couple reasons for that. Duplicating document numbers in the same fiscal year for specifically HEM, and because we've changed our date structure on the 851, which I know is invisible to agencies, but it is important to us here at DAS. So, okay, so one of the things that are those additional entries is the data not sent to SFMA. And so we're having to do catch-up files quarterly on these. This data that was processed for a month, but it's after run one has completed. So cancellations, any manual checks that are prior to month end. So just looking at the calendar, so let's say run one happens on the 27th of the month and you have somebody terminate on the 30th, and we have to do a off-cycle check on the 30th for them. That would not make, that would end up in the next quarterly catch-up file because it was after run one, but it was for that month. July through September was processed in October. Once we figured out this issue and sort of had a plan on how to deal with it, and we've been doing quarterly transactions since then. Most recently, January through March transactions were processed on 4/30 with a effective date of 4/1 and the report effective date of 4/29. The tentative plan is to process these quarterly with the timing to coincide with the end of quarter. We don't always make that. And so we are working on a long-term fix, and we are emailing affected agencies each quarter. So if you had no transactions in that quarterly catch-up file most recently, your agency would not have received notification. So on to some Workday issues. Some in-progress issues that we know about is the report, specifically the payroll register. The data does not match between the pay results and the pay register. Specifically, we do see it duplicating from run 2 on run 1. So it's the prior run 2. So with Workday, the month is the month it's happening in. So for SFMA, we're getting ready for April run 2 to come through. But in Workday, that's looked at as a May transaction. And so it's then getting picked up again, which we are, this is on the list of fixes. It's getting picked up again on May run 1. So, and then also some costing preview, although that I think is very, very close. And so, or actually, sorry, that's a different one. This is, yeah, costing preview. This is something agencies have asked for. That one, whoops, wrong. That report has not been worked on quite yet. Things that are completed is the hours costing overrides. So specifically, the hours in CD not matching to SFMA. Specifically around the overtime costing, it was duplicating some things. So reports, the time audit report, it's a new one that is coming online. And it's a timesheet with tracking and cost overrides listed. So it's everything from the time cost override is entered, by who and when it was entered, and who approved it, when it was paid out, all of that tracking information, which will be helpful to agencies in when they're getting audit requests from. So, and on the data mart side, the logic between employer paid and employee paid was fixed, and also all of December AY23 had the wrong AY on it. That has since been corrected. So and Aaron sent emails on those to the Data Mart list. So, okay, so on the OPE labor costing, so we've got the retro cost override, and we're looking at system resolution. We've been doing some manual cleanup based on agency approval. The next one coming up is December 2023 through March 2024, and we will be loading that based on agency approval. So the OPE group that's being worked on, they have sent all of the agencies, here is the data that's available in Workday, and a survey for does the agency want to approve those transactions for load? If they are not going to be checking in with agencies, we're pulling those results on the 9th, and agencies who have responded that they do want the data loaded the morning of the 9th will be pulled, and those transactions will be loaded. So, and we will follow up with the agencies who do approve a load as we do load those. So. On phase 2 of that, which is actually getting the system to do this, we are in the midst of testing and validating scenarios and to implement the automated process. Payroll and finance participation from agencies are needed because there are 3 approved tests required by all agencies. So that means that transactions have been entered in Workday test, and we are seeing them flow through to the automated OPE. And then those are validated and the agency approves those tests. So right now, we're still working on getting approvals from all agencies on the 2nd test that was run. I know they're planning on running the test 3 into the transactions into the OPE process, and subsequently into SFMA acceptance, I think this week. We do know that a 4th test is going to be required because some agencies either had some issues with run 1 or have not, didn't get transactions into run 1. If you have questions, please email Rhonda Bachman or Deanna Harris. Okay. Something that we've heard from agencies as an issue is the Workday costing allocations. Agencies are seeing splits that they don't expect. And what was recommended, information was provided by the payroll team. If you go to the employee's profile and check the pay section, and then check the costing allocations tab, then you should see any costing allocations. Now, things to note with this is it only applies to new wages, even if there's a retro date, and HR must end these transfers or they'll continue. So if you're seeing something that maybe somebody transferred in from another agency and you're seeing some bizarre costs, it can be due to this. And this is something to check. I'm not sure on who all has access. Definitely your payroll person should be able to view this. So if you're seeing an issue with somebody who's getting weird costing or different costing than you're expecting, please check in, either try and check this tab on them, or if you cannot access it, then check with your agency payroll partner. Okay, for issues that you're seeing on the accounting side, but that relate to payroll, Workday payroll, we do want you to submit a case in Workday. If you type case into the search bar and you click create case, then you can add any necessary documentation and examples. ORIDs are great, as well as the month and run you're seeing the transactions. It gives them some information to work off of. But some of these issues that we've been hearing about over the past months, SFMS isn't always aware of. And so to help us track those issues and see if there's some ongoing issues that we're seeing consistently between agencies, we're asking you to email that information to us. Give us the Workday case number. And if we see a trend on there, then we will raise it as a bigger issue with the Workday team. Help us advocate for you when you're seeing issues. So. Okay, so posting rules crosswalk. So this is a new thing. We've been working on this a little while. Is anyone familiar with the JTable reports in OSPA? It was sort of the crosswalk between pay code to agency object or comp object, and what the description of that pay code was. We do now have a report, or not really a report, but a workbook that is a mashup of multiple Workday reports that is available in Workday. So it's similar to the JTable. It shows the agency object or comp object, the ledger account, what the earnings is, the earnings code, the description, and the statistical agency object or comp object. It is auto-refreshed on the first of every month, and it can be done on demand by some SFMS users, specifically me, Fabiola Flores, Alan Park, Rose Maddox, and Liz Schultz. So the link is in the presentation, and it is you will have to log into Workday, but if you have the link, you can view the report. If you need it refreshed, contact one of us and we will hit refresh for you. There are two tabs on it. There is the agency version, and then there's also a DAS version, which is more important for the SFMS side of things as we're doing some validation. It has some pay component groups. So just a little more detail on that. As we're looking at rules around things, they have pay component groups assigned to them. So non-cash taxable, it's set up so it doesn't come through SFMA, but the tax implication is there on payroll. And so that's a pay component group that is set up for certain earnings codes. So OB data for Workday, this is not a new slide, but the calendar link is available. And most agencies for run one, the pay period ending is for the payroll month. The OB calendar is linked as well. The pay period date is different than the report effective date. So the period end date is different between run one and run two for Workday, as we talked about earlier. And any questions?
Hi, Jennifer. We do have a couple questions. The first one was, what roles will the time audit report be available to? I'm assuming that's in Workday.
That is a good question. I do not have the full details on that. I will note that question and ask that of SES group, of the Workday group.
And I think in coordination with that, the question is, how do we become an accounting partner, if that's what it's called, in Workday to access those payroll costing reports?
It would actually be a finance partner, if I remember correctly. And I think you can actually just submit a case in Workday. Same as we talked about with other issues that you're seeing, and submitting a case. So that's a really great tool. So.
All right, those are all our questions. If you have more payroll project update questions, you can always send Jennifer an email. I'm sure she'd be happy to answer any questions further. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
And next up, we have Alan Park, who is going to give us some more information on the fiscal year end rollover. Hi, Alan.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. Excuse me. Good morning. My name is Alan Park, and I'm here to talk about the fiscal year-end roll process. Hopefully everybody can see I'm on slide 14. Hopefully everybody's tracking with that. So the year-end roll programs run each year on the last working day of June. So this year that would be scheduled for Friday, June 28th. The accounting balances in the fiscal year tables roll forward to the new fiscal year. So we're going from fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 25. This process happens occurs in two steps. First, program DAFM 353 extracts and rolls the data from each table to the next fiscal year. And then program DAFM 356 merges together any rows with duplicate keys. The new financial balances appear not only in the first month, but in all months of the new fiscal year. So this year is only a fiscal year change since we're in the middle of appropriation year 25. So there are only 5 tables affected by this year's program. Fiscal year 24 balances will roll forward to fiscal year 25 for 5 tables: the cash control, document financial, grant financial, contract financial, and project financial. Now, the RSTARS D31 screen is the Comptroller General Ledger account profile. There are profiles for every Comptroller GL account. Each Comptroller GL account is categorized as being a memo account, which has a year-end close value of 0, a real account with a year-end close value of 1, or a nominal account with a year-end close value of 2. A few examples. Example of a memo account is GL 9010. Title is Units Accumulated, and you would find that GL account on transaction code 599, where you record statistical hours for payroll, for example. An example of a real account is GL 0065, Undistributed Cash Receipt. You would find that GL account on transaction code 151. And an example of a nominal account is GL 3500, Expenditure Control Cash. You'll find this GL account on transaction code 380, which is clearing a warrant-generated transaction code 222. So for memo and real general ledger accounts, which are those accounts with a year-end close value of 0 or 1, the fiscal year 24 balances will roll forward to the same general ledger accounts for fiscal year 25. And the memo and real accounts do not close at year end. That's only the nominal GL accounts. So determining which GL account a nominal account balance will roll to in the new fiscal year depends on if the balance is categorized as one of the 8 GASB 54 classifications or not. You may remember GASB 54 was implemented several years ago, and it was quite a change to the processing in our system. So the D23 fund profile shows if funds with those coding elements are categorized as GASB 54. The year-end roll program will find the GL account to roll the balance to by looking up the GASB 54 code on the D54 screen. The D54 screen is called the System Parameters Profile. If a D23 fund profile shows that the funds are not categorized as GASB 54, then the year-end roll program will find the GL account to roll the balance to by looking at the D21, which is the gap fund type profile. So next we'll look at an example of each of these scenarios. So in this example, Fund 0005 is categorized with a GASB 54 code of A1, which stands for Assigned Fund Balance. The D54 screen profile shows that any nominal GL account balances for Fund 0005 will roll to GL account 3052. And in this example, Fund 1153 is not categorized as GASB 54. As you can see, the GASB 54 field on the D23 fund profile is blank. So when the GASB 54 field is blank on the D23 fund profile, the year-end roll program looks up the gap fund type on the D21 gap fund type profile screen. So in this case, any nominal GL account balances for Fund 1153 will roll to GL account 3025. So the good news is there's no responsibilities to agencies for a fiscal year roll. The duties that SFMS will do is send out notifications through our news list, update the system job profiles, schedule the job to run on the last working day in June, request the IT file remain closed the morning after the rollover, and verify that the rollover has occurred as desired, and then request reopening of the IT file after that verification is complete. So I'll actually be doing that verification Saturday morning on June 29th, since Saturday is a day that our system is open. We'll do that Saturday instead of waiting until the following Monday. And that's it with the presentation. And I saw a question in the chat. It says, what are duplicate keys that get merged? That's a great question. I just know that in looking at the reports that come out of the job, that there are some record counts that are listed as duplicate. I'm going to have to dig more into that to get an explanation. So I appreciate the question, and I will get an answer back out. Any other questions about the program?
Anybody else have another question? Oh, people are happy. That's good.
Right.
We love having the questions come in, by the way. So whenever you have one, if you're thinking of a question, you can be assured someone else probably is too. So we appreciate it when you type those into the chat. All right. Well, it appears everybody's ready for that roll, Alan. Thanks.
All right, good. So next up is Julie to talk about the year-end close.
It's me again. So the year-end roll, the agency has had no responsibilities, not going to be so lucky with the year-end close. First of all, though, what is the purpose of the year-end close program? This is when we close the nominal accounts into their appropriate equity accounts. We get rid of them for FY24. The accounts will end with a zero balance, and then we'll have equity accounts to start off FY25 with the updated equity account balances. We run this program every fiscal year after the close of month 13. And this year it will be run on Friday, August 30th, 2024. For additional details in addition to this presentation, you can visit or look up the SFMS Desk Manual Sent 5, which is available on our desk manual page of our website. Okay, the General Ledger Close program uses the same method Alan just described for the year-end rollover program to determine which equity accounts to close the nominal accounts into. So I'm not going to go through that again in details because he did such a great job of demonstrating that before. But if the D23 fund has a GASB 54 indicator, the program looks to the definitions provided under the table ID GB54 on the D54 screen. Those definitions will provide both the equity GL account and the T code that will be used to record the closing entry. If the D23 fund doesn't have a GASB 54 indicator, the program will look up the fund's gap fund type on the D21 profile for the appropriate equity account and T code to use. As the program acquires that appropriate equity account and T codes, it then generates the closing transactions They are generated under batch agency 999 and a batch type Y. The documents themselves have a document type of YG with an effective date of 6/31/24. So still obviously in month 13. Okay, here's the responsibilities I warned you about. We do have some duties for you to complete for a successful year-end close. I've broken them out between the things you need to do before the program runs and those that we need you to do after the program runs. So before the program runs, the agency needs to order DAFR 8650 and DAFR 8920. These reports must be run on either August 16th or August 23rd. Those dates are really important. You don't want to miss those dates because if you don't run the before reports on one of those dates, you're not going to be able to replicate them. These dates are after the FY24 transactions have been completed, but before the close program runs. So it's after the agencies have finished all of their entries, but the accounts haven't been closed out yet. You'll need these reports to verify the general account balances that result from the program after it's running. We will review an example of the 91 screen to use to request these reports in my next segment on ordering reports. Your second responsibility before the program runs is to ensure that the last month closed indicator on the on your 25 screen, your agency control profile, is 12 or less. If this indicator is set to 13, the program won't be able to post because the system will show that that month 13 is already closed. So please make sure that your 25 screen has the indicator set to less than 13. It can be 12 or less before 4:30 p.m. on August 30th. I have a little indicator there of where you can find that last month closed indicator that has to be changed. All right, so you did those two responsibilities. Thank you very much. And the program runs where everything's going well. Here's what we have to do after the program runs. The closing transactions that the program generates may have errors, which is going to keep those batches on the 530 screen. Remember, the program is run under batch agency 999, so the resulting batches are displayed on the 530 screen for that agency, 999, as their Y batches. Any individual at your agency with a user class of 48 can view the transactions of those batches to address the errors. But your agency support analyst will also be in contact with you to assist in any corrections that are necessary. Your analyst will also have to release the batches because they are system generated. The agency won't be able to release them, and your analyst will do it for you. The second agency responsibility after the program runs comes after your agency support analyst notifies you that there are no more outstanding Y batch errors. At that time, the agency should set the last month indicator on the 25 screen to 13 for the FY24 profile. That month 13 is now officially closed, and you can reflect that on your 25 screen. And here's another example of where that indicator is located. The third agency responsibility, I know they just seem to keep going on, is to pull and retain a copy of the electronic version of DAFR 3511, the General Ledger Close Control Report. The RSTARS news screen includes the link to the electronic report repository, but you can also contact your analyst if you have any difficulties with accessing that repository of electronic reports, not the OB repository, but our electronic reports website. Please remember, this report is only available until September 28th of 2024 and should be retained by the agency for 6 years under OAR 166-300-0225, parenthetical 26. I'm sure you'll all remember that reference. Bottom line, pull the report up and save it, and we'll be good. All right, the fourth agency responsibility is to order the after, what we call the after DAFR reports for month 13 FY24. This is the same DAFR 8650 and 8920 that you ordered before the program ran. Remember, don't order these reports as your after reports until you have heard from your analyst that all of your Y batches have cleared and that there are no outstanding errors. You want to make sure that you run the after reports after everything has been able to post. Finally, the fifth and last responsibility the agency has in association with the year-end close program is to compare those before and after reports that you printed. You will see on these reports that the nominal accounts are still on the after reports, and that's because it allows a final record of activity for the FY. The balances, however, are offset with entries to the GL account 2960 revenue expenditure summary balance. GL 2960 nets with the balances in all the nominal accounts and leaves an appropriate increase or decrease to the equity accounts. If you detect any errors, anomalies, or omissions between these before and after reports, please notify your support analyst as soon as possible. We'll have further instructions or reminders coming out through the process. So we're here to work through the process with you. We'll send out some reminders on when to order reports and things like that. But this section gives you kind of an overview of what you're going to have to do for year-end close. Let me see. Oh, is that a typo? I've got some questions here. Is that a typo 6/31/24? There are only 30 days in June. Well, Nicole, welcome to the state accounting. June 31st is what we call the magical month 13 that exists in governmental accounting. And so we have month 13 to process any final closing type of entries, and that date designates it as month 13 versus month 12, which is June. Are there any other questions about this job before I move on? If you do have any questions after this, please remember, contact your agency support analyst. As I always say, that's what we're here for. All right, I have the next section, requesting year-end reports, just as I promised earlier. So at year-end, there's an increased need for financial reporting. Here are some commonly ordered reports, and I've also included links to the pages that they have in the SFMS report guide. You can get additional information there and discussion of the indicators that you may need to use on the 91 screen when you order them. Many agencies utilize these reports. We've got the DAFR 6530, trial balances by fund and GL, DAFR 6610, which is the agency operating statement, and the DAFR 6620, the agency balance sheet. And do note that the reports are often are also available in the OB repository, and I've indicated their titles that they have in the repository on the slide. So you can use DAFRs or OB, whichever you prefer. Reports for the year-end job specifically, as I discussed earlier, these are those before and after reports, we call them. Your 8650, trial balance by fund and GL ledger, and the 8920, general ledger fund detailed trial balance. And I have the links to their SFMS report guide pages as well. Okay, this is always my favorite part. When ordering these different reports at year end, we have to remember an account for all the different open time periods there are at a year end. I've listed the time periods that we're going to be opening and having open at the same time, and a graphical representation of these. As you can see, between July 1st, and this is supposed to represent August 16th, excuse me, July 19th, see, I'm already confusing myself. We have both fiscal year 24, fiscal month 12, and fiscal month 13. And we have fiscal year 25, fiscal month 1. They're all open in this time period. And even after July 19th, up until August 16th, we still have multiple periods open. So ordering reports by generic period indicators like CM or CC or PM, we often see agencies get results back that they weren't expecting and not what they intended to receive back. So if that's all confusing, here's a recommendation we have for you. Well, actually, I have one more slide to go over, so even more how it's confusing. This is a chart, shows you the different indicators you can use to order a report, what their definition is, and what you would get on these different dates. So let's take a look here. If you order a report with indicators specifying a fiscal month and fiscal year end, you're going to get that specific month activity that you're asking for. If you use CM, that stands for current calendar month activity, the calendar month you're in when you order the report. PM is the prior calendar month of the month you're in when you order the report. In contrast, CC is the last closed fiscal month of the date you ordered the report. And then we've got CY and PY, current fiscal and prior years, if you're ordering based on years. So let's take a look. If we ordered a report on July 19th, which is June close, what would we get back under these different indicators? If we ordered it with specific indicators, we'd get what we asked for, June 2024. I put an NA there because usually you're too concerned about closing June to worry about period 13. You would actually get some results, but it's just not, it doesn't happen very often, but people want it. If we use the CM on July 19th, remember that's calendar month, then you're going to get July, the calendar month of 2024 to date, whatever's been entered up until July 19th. If you use PM, prior month, again, it refers to calendar month. So you're ordering it in July, so the prior month is June. If we look at the calendar month. If you use current closed month in July, you get, excuse me, I said current closed, last closed fiscal month, you're going to get June 2024 because it just closed. All right, let's go ahead and let's look at the August 9th results. Again, with the indicators, if you put in specific month and years, you're going to get exactly what you asked for. June of 2024, or if you do a month 13, you're going to get June and month 13 because those come together. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. If we use a CM on August 9th, again, calendar month, you're going to get the calendar month, August 9th, you're going to get August 2024 to date. PM, prior month, calendar month of the report we ordered in, you're going to get July 2024. Current closed month, you're going to get June of 2024. If we wait until month 13 closes and you use a CM, current calendar month, you're going to get the month of August for 2024. If you use PM, you're going to get July 2024. And if you use CC, you're going to get June and month 13 of 2024. So you can see if you don't have the right indicator, you're going to get something you didn't expect to get. That's a lot. And, you know, the chart may be helpful, but here's a better recommendation. Especially at year end, use the period and FY indicators during this time. So if you want to order your June close reports, I recommend requesting on the 91 screen, period 12, fiscal year 24, and then enter a frequency as well of when you want the report to be generated. When you want month 13 close reports, period 13, fiscal year 24, and the date you want the report to generate. When you need to order those before reports for the year-end close, use period 13, fiscal year 24, and the date you want the report to run. After reports, period 13, fiscal year 24, and the date you want it to run, but just remember that that date needs to be past August 30th. Now, I didn't include the examples, the frequency control field for these examples, but I put a note in here that if you're like most agencies and you allow your reports to be controlled by the system management profile that we here at SFMS maintain, you would enter an S in that field. But if your agency does control your reports by the 25 profile, you would have an indicator of A in those fields. Now, in addition to the R-Stars report guide that I had links to, you can also check out the course or the training, Intro to R-Stars Reports training, and that is on our website under training materials, supplemental training. You'll find the reports training in there. So that is a really great training, kind of review some of these things. And then, of course, this presentation will be up on our website under the user group soon. Are there any questions? Let's see. Is there a checklist? Jeremy, I see your question. So you must be talking, I'm thinking that's a question that came in during year-end close. And there will be emails sent out by your analyst, your support analyst, indicating, reminding you, for example, to do your before reports. And then they'll be in contact with you saying, hey, this job's going to run. Remember, you need to do this. There'll be an email sent out after the job runs. If you have errors, they'll help you clear the errors. And then you'll also get an email that when those errors have cleared, and will remind you of the different reports you need to print off or save. Will you talk about appropriate training? Okay, Joy, I think I maybe covered that just now here at the end, hopefully. You refer back to this training, take that intro to R-Stars reports training. It's not take it, you can just view it on the SFMS web page. Our web page has the PDF version. It also has a link to the YouTube version for that training. So take that training, and if you have questions, what do I always say? Contact your agency support analyst. I feel a bit like a repeating monkey. All right, if there are no more questions, let's see, it is 9:51. I think this is a great time to take a break. We'll take a 5-minute break, so we'll be back about 9:55 or just shy of 10, and I will bring us back at that time. Go get a cup of coffee. I think I need more, and we will be back in about 5 minutes. Okay, I hope everyone had enough time to run and get a drink of water or some more coffee, or stretch your legs. I know I said 9:56, so I've got a few seconds here left, but I wanted to give everybody a chance to get back to their computers and power them back up, get your speakers turned on. So at this time, we're going to go over some fiscal year end closing guidelines, those lovely yellow pages from the agenda. And to help us with this topic is Liz Schultz. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you, Julie. Good morning, everyone. My name is Liz Schultz, and I will be covering the SFMS fiscal year-end closing guidelines for fiscal year 24. And as Julie mentioned, we did send out a copy of the slides and the year-end closing guidelines handout to all registered participants. I'm going to be talking about that handout in these slides. If you didn't get a copy of it, please feel free to put your email address in the chat and we can get a copy sent to you. We are going to be posting it on our website later this week as well. So let's dive in here. Today, I'm going to cover a few different topics about the year-end closing guidelines. If you've been with the state and you've gone through year-end before, this is going to be pretty familiar information. It's always good to have a reminder. If this is your first time working through a year-end with the state, these year-end closing guidelines are really handy. I'm going to talk about what they are, why you should care about them, what information they cover, the timing, when will it matter, kind of go over how the information is presented, and then who you can call if you have any questions. So if you do have questions while I'm going through this, I've got the chat up, I'll kind of monitor it, but we do have a section at the end to go through any questions. So just type those questions in the chat and we can make sure to cover them for you. So one thing I do want to point out, it's a question that commonly comes up when we get close to year end, because DAS, the Department of Administrative Services, has a couple groups that are involved in the fiscal year end process. So statewide accounting and reporting services, their acronym is SARS, they have a variety of resources that are also available for agencies during fiscal year end. So the SARS group helps prepare the ACFR, the financial statements for the state. Agencies have SARS analysts as well. SFMS, you have SFMS analysts, and we kind of help with that system side. So on this slide, if you want to see the resources that are available from the SARS group, there's a guide to year-end closing for agencies on that first link that has a lot of helpful information. If you haven't seen that, that's really good information to look at. It goes through pre-close review, accruals, different things you want to be looking at when you're preparing for year-end. There will also be a SARS year-end training. We don't have the date quite yet, but it is a gold star requirement for somebody from each agency to attend. I see a question, do we know if it's going to be in person again? I haven't gotten confirmation of that. I know in the past they've made it available on their website, and they may do kind of a hybrid, but we haven't heard anything yet. What I would recommend is make sure you're signed up for the ACFR news list if you aren't already. That's where that announcement will go out on the date of the training and whether it's going to be in person or virtual. You also can contact your SARS analyst. We have the link here, the ACFR contacts link, to see who your SARS analyst is for your agency if you're not sure. So both your SARS analyst and your SFMS analyst can provide assistance during year end. SARS can help answer questions on how activities should be reported for financial statement purposes. So they're kind of looking at that higher level, how things are going to roll up for the state. So if you're not sure you have activity, you're not sure how you should record it, they would be the one to go to get some more information on that and guidance on that. Your SFMS analyst can help you answer questions on how to input year-end entries into SFMA. So if you have a question about T codes, comptroller objects, mechanically how to input that transaction, your SFMS analyst is going to be the best bet. And if you have uncommon year-end situations, I know a lot of agencies have gone through year-end multiple times. If you've been around, you have your procedures in place. You probably already kind of know the year-end entries you need to make. But if you have some sort of unusual situation, reach out early. A lot of times on those uncommon situations, SARS and SFMS will have to coordinate to make sure we're providing appropriate guidance to the agencies. So again, if you know you have that, reach out early so we can provide that guidance for you, answer any of your questions. Please don't wait till the week of hard close to ask those types of questions. Right. So where can you find these year-end guidelines? So we did email these out to registered participants yesterday afternoon. You should have gotten a copy of those, what used to be called yellow pages. Now it's just a PDF. This handout is also going to be posted to our website later this week. And there is the link on this slide of where you can find that. Now, why should you care about these year-end closing guidelines? Well, we put these guidelines together to contain a lot of valuable information to help you during year end. There's a lot of information coming at you during fiscal year end. You're trying to get all those entries in. You're doing a lot of entries you wouldn't normally do throughout the year to accrue things. So these guidelines are updated each fiscal year, and they're intended to cover the most common questions we get from agencies at fiscal year end. So they have a pretty similar format of what you've seen in prior years if you've gone through this before. If this is your first time going through a year end, I'd recommend reading through them. A lot of the times, the questions that we answer in SFMS are addressed in these guidelines. So I definitely recommend, bookmarking these, saving off a copy somewhere so you have them at your fingertips. Because they're going to answer a lot of those questions at year end on what you need to do, what specific T codes you need to use to record accrual entries, those types of things. So what information do we have in the year end guidelines? Since these guidelines are really focused on year end, it's fiscal month 12 and fiscal month 13. That's our focus. So June and month 13, which is our a period of accrual. So we're covering those 2 months. We do have 13 months in SFMA. So normally most calendars have 12 months. For the accounting calendar, we do have fiscal month 13. It's an additional accounting period in SFMA after June month end close to use for accruals or other year-end closing entries. So all fiscal year 24 fiscal month 13 entries are going to use an effective date of 6/31/2024. So when should you be looking at these guidelines? During fiscal month 12 and fiscal month 13. So fiscal month 12 spans from June 1st through Friday, July 19th. Fiscal month 13 spans from July 1st through August 16th. So please note, this was mentioned a little bit earlier in today's presentation, but you're going to have 2 fiscal years open at the same time, starting on July 1st. So it's really important when you're inputting transactions that you make sure to pay attention to the effective date you're using so that you're recording those transactions in the correct fiscal year accounting period. So how do you find information in these year-end closing guidelines? We've laid out the information in a table format, and the next few slides are going to show some examples of what that looks like. We have different topics that are available, 530 screen, balance transfers, cost allocation, deposits, expenditures, payroll, the 25 profile, suspense account activity, and unearned revenue. And we're going to look at some examples of these topics in the next few slides. So if you look through these and you're not seeing your specific question addressed, you can always reach out, as Julia said, to your SFMS support analyst, and we can provide instructions. These guidelines are covering the most common topics, but it doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily capture everything that you may run into at year end. So this slide just kind of tells you what sort of topics are going to be covered in those guidelines. So this slide, it's got a lot of information on it, but this shows you some of the information that's included in that handout. So you're going to find the same information on the handout. These slides are just going to break it out to give you some more look into how we've organized them. So at the top of this slide, there's a few tips I want to point out. Whenever you are viewing batches, especially at year end, you want to make sure if you're just trying to view the transactions and you're not making any changes to them, you want to select the batch with F2 details and select transactions with F2 select. What we've seen in the past is some agencies will go in to look at the batch, but they'll use F4 change. And when you do that, the system's thinking you're going to make a change. You may not even make a change. You may not save any changes. But what can happen is it can put an approved batch on hold, or it can result in user class security errors. So we want to make sure, especially at year end, you're trying to get those batches to clear. You're trying to meet those deadlines. Be cautious with how you're viewing batches so you don't accidentally put something on hold that was supposed to be released. The other comment that's really important, you don't see this during a fiscal year, but when we have 2 fiscal years open, this occurs. When we have those 2 fiscal years open, if you have a transaction effective date, for example, you entered a fiscal year 25 effective date and you realize it should have been a fiscal year 24 effective date. If this is an edit mode 2 batch, the system won't allow you to just correct the effective date, unfortunately, because it's crossing fiscal years. If you run into that situation, you have to delete the batch and then re-enter it with the correct effective date. So again, really pay attention to those effective dates when you're entering them to make sure you're recording the activity in the right period. So we've got a couple sections here. This is the table that you will see in the year-end close guidelines, and this is specific to the 530 screen. This provides instructions on what you need to do during fiscal month 12 and fiscal month 13. So if you have edit mode 2 batches that are on the 530 screen after month-end close, this tells you what you need to do for those transactions. In our stars, we have different edit modes. There's more information about that in our desk manual, or you can ask your SFMS analyst. Edit mode 2 batches, they post to the financial tables as soon as you save them. So even if they haven't been released yet, you already see the impact of those transactions on the financial tables in our stars. So if you have an edit mode 2 batch and it's still hanging out on the 530 screen after the close of the fiscal month, it's already going to be included in those reports for that month. So those batches should be released. They shouldn't be deleted or changed. If you do need to make changes to them, let us know. We especially want to avoid this situation at the close of month 13. So your SFMS analyst is going to be sending you all the batches that relate to the prior fiscal year, trying to make sure all of those get cleared before the system closes on August 16th. If you have a situation where a batch didn't get cleared and it's still on the 530 screen, it's already included in those year-end reports. So those shouldn't be deleted or changed. If they do have to be deleted or changed, we need to notify SARS because that could mean post-close adjustments to the financial statements. Now, edit mode 0, 1, or 3 batches, those are the other edit modes we have in the system. Those transactions don't actually post until they've been released and they clear without any errors. So if you have any of those hanging out on the 530 screen after month-end close, they're going to be needed. They need to be moved forward to the next open fiscal month. So we've got some specific instructions here on what to do with batches on the 530 screen based on the edit mode. We also have guidelines about deposits. A couple of tips again at the top of the slide. Just recognize the difference between cash availability and cash recognition. So cash from deposits is not available for an agency to spend through R-Stars until it reconciles with Treasury. So if you have a deposit and you've recorded your entry for the deposit with, a T code 190, It's not going to update on the 63 cash screen to show that you have that cash available to spend until it has reconciled with Treasury and the deposit has a reconciled status of yes on the 13th screen. Now that's completely different than cash recognition for the financial statements. GL account 0065 and 0070, it's unreconciled deposit and cash. They're both considered cash at fiscal year end. So if you've recorded a deposit and it doesn't reconcile to Treasury until July, as long as you recorded it with a June date or a 6/31 date, it's going to be recorded at fiscal year end. I do see a question, how often does Treasury reconcile? It's a nightly process. So if you've entered the deposit and released it, it's going to try to match up to Treasury records that evening. And then the following morning, it should be reconciled as long as the amounts, the account, and the deposit number have matched. So we have some instructions on deposits, whether the activity occurred in June or July, what you should record in SFMA for that. So for June bank activity, you want to record it to the date the event occurred, even if Treasury post activity in July, and you'll post it to fiscal month 12. So T-code 190 transactions can be backdated to June 30th. So if you've got activity in June, you can record T-code 190 to fiscal month 12. For July activity, you're going to record it as July in fiscal year 25. If later after you've made that entry, you realize this is actually June activity, you can do an accrual to accrue it for the prior fiscal year with a T-code 436. So moving on to our next section, we talk about balance transfers and expenditures. Really important note, do not backdate balance transfers after calendar date 6/30/24, unless it meets all of these three criteria I have listed here. And you'll see some reminders coming out through the ACFR news list and the SFMS news list about this. You can only make a backdated balance transfer if the adjustment is within the same agency, it's within the same gap fund and the same Treasury fund. So in general, you shouldn't be backdating balance transfers. You want to have it be the date that activity actually occurred when the cash is actually moving. So really pay attention to that. You'll see reminders of that. And instead of backdating those balance transfers, you may have to record them in July and do accruals for fiscal year 24. So for expenditures, any services and supplies received as of calendar date June 30th, you can record those using a warrant generating T-code. If fiscal month 12 hasn't closed yet, you can use an effective date of 6/30. If you are in fiscal month 13, you can use an effective date of 6/31. Or if you recorded it in July, you can accrue it to fiscal month 13 with T-code 437. The next section is specific to payroll. We have a couple different pieces of information depending on what type of payroll batch it is. June payroll should be posted to fiscal month 12. If there are any June 20 fiscal year 24 payroll transactions remaining on the 5/30 screen after July 18th, you can't post those to fiscal month 13. Instead, you have to move them forward to a July effective date, and then you're going to accrue the activity with T-code 437. So the system's going to automatically reverse out those accrual entries in July, and that's just to make sure the activity is recorded in the correct accounting period. So we've got some instructions to follow here specific to payroll batches. And we do have, if you're looking at that handout for the guidelines, we have reminders on different pages of that handout. I went through most of them today, but just to kind of give you a refresher on those, we talk on page 1 about how to use F2 to view transactions, how to correct effective dates on tracked documents, reminders to not backdate BTs. And we also have a list for balance transfers. If you're working with another agency transferring funds and you're not sure who at that agency you need to coordinate with, we have a BT contact list on our SFMS website with who you should contact at that other agency to coordinate those balance transfer entries. So you'll see in the year-end guidelines, we have a link to where that is, just so you're communicating, making sure things are getting posted correctly for anything that's going to be crossing agencies. We also have instructions on the mass batch changes. Mass batch changes, you'll see those referenced in these closed handouts. The instructions on how to do that is on page 4. This is really helpful if there are batches. You can't use it with edit mode 2 batches, but you can use it with batches that are in other edit modes to change the effective date on the entire batch. So we see that maybe used with payroll if you have batches that didn't clear before June close and you need to roll them forward to July. The mass batch change instructions will tell you how to do that. We also have some information on fiscal year 25 cost allocation dates. Not many agencies use the cost allocation feature in RSTARS, but if you're one of those agencies that do, the timelines for when those run get pushed out a little bit for fiscal year end. So we include some instructions on what those dates are for July and August. Finally, the last question I'm going to cover is who can you contact if you have questions? Now, there's a lot of information in those year-end guidelines. As you can kind of see from the examples I went through, it's pretty technical, trying to describe, the specific T codes, effective dates, everything that you need to do. But again, these guidelines don't cover every situation, or maybe reading through these guidelines, you're not quite sure what you need to do. If that's the case, reach out to your SFMS analyst. I've got the analysts listed here. We have Maria, Julie, and Scott to help you. If you're not sure who your agency's analyst is, you can always go, if you go into RSTARS and go to the 90 help screen and enter the keyword news and look at page 5, it'll show you a list of all the agency numbers and which analyst is assigned to assist your agency. So during year end, we kind of block our time. We're here to help answer questions that you may have. We expect more questions at year end. These guidelines will hopefully help answer most of your questions, but feel free to reach out if you need additional assistance. So any questions about the year-end closing guidelines?
Hi, Liz. We had one come in. What user class can use mass batch changes? The 54A screen you were referring to.
Yeah, so it depends on what T code is used in the batch. So there's not just one user class that can do mass batch changes. If it's a batch, T code 222, for example, a voucher payable batch, and you have access normally to make changes to T code 222, then you'll be able to do a mass batch change with that T code. So it's really what T codes are included on that batch, whether or not you'll be able to do a mass batch change. So Abby, if you have a specific type of batch that you have a question on, we can provide more information on what user classes allow that T code.
All right, thank you.
All right. Not seeing any questions. If you do have questions, again, feel free to enter them in the chat. I can come back and address them later, or just reach out to your SFMS analyst or myself. All right, I'm going to move on to the next topic that we have on our agenda today, the RSTARS screen highlight, and we're going to talk about the D31 profile. Now, this D31 is the general ledger account profile, and we've mentioned it a couple times earlier in the presentation with some of our year-end roll, year-end close programs refers to information on this D31. But I wanted to talk a little bit about it. I don't know how often agencies really look at it, but there is some useful information on there that I want to point out and make sure people are aware of. So the general ledger accounts are used by the state of Oregon. They're established centrally at the request of Statewide Accounting and Reporting Services, SARS, for use by all of the state agencies that are using our system to consolidate information into the Act for Financial Statements. So these GL accounts identify the nature of the activity and the balances. The general ledger account profile will indicate whether it's a balance sheet account, the real GLs, an operating statement account, those nominal GLs that are going to be closed with the year-end roll and close programs, or if it's just a memo GL account. So for balance sheet, the GL accounts provide the lowest level of statewide classification. For the operating statement nominal GLs, those GLs also require a specific D10 comptroller object be recorded with those transactions to classify operating statement activity. The memo GLs are used for system tracking and statistical purposes, but the balances in those GLs are not reported in the financial statement. So let's go through a couple of examples of D31 profiles, just so you can see what sort of information is included on this profile. So the first example we have is GL0065, unreconciled deposit. So this is the balance sheet real GL account. So this classifies as cash. So on the top of the screen, we've got a lot of different fields on this screen, but there's a couple I want to point out that may be useful for you. The first is the GAAP GL class. So in this case, that's the second row on this screen, GAAP GL class 010. So this shows you how this GL activity is going to roll up to the ACFR. And I'm going to go over that roll up in the next slide. It also shows the normal balance for the GL. So if you look at the fourth row down, the normal balance is a D for debit. So you can see whether this GL should normally have a debit or a credit balance. We also have the year-end close indicator that was mentioned earlier. In this case, this indicator is 1. 0 is for memo, 1 is for real GLs that aren't closed, those balance sheet accounts, and 2 is for nominal, those operating statement accounts. So in this case, we've got an indicator of 1, that this is a real GL balance sheet account. So if we look at that GAAP GL class 010, we can actually look up on additional profiles in RStars to see how things roll up. So if you look up the GL GAAP account class shown on that previous slide on the D14 screen, so I put 010 in here, you can see that rolls up as cash and cash equivalents. You can also see a further roll up if you go to the next D13 screen and enter in that GL GAAP account category that's shown at the bottom of the D14 screen. And we can see that cash and cash equivalents is classified as a current asset. It shows up in the ACFR as an asset. So you can see the full roll up for those GLs if you want to see how it ties to the ACFR financial reports. In our second example, this is going to be one of those nominal GL accounts, the operating statement side. This is GL 3100, revenue control cash. We've got that same information at the top of the slide if you want to see the GAAP GL class that's normally got a credit balance. It does close at fiscal year end. Those balances get closed out and moved to equity. On the bottom of the slide, we have some additional information that may or may not be helpful to you, but it's good to point out that this is available if you want to look this up. It will tell you how this D31 GL account will post to different financial inquiry screens in RStars. So we've got on this bottom section where it says appropriation 12, agency budget 12. This is how the balance type that is used on those different tables. The appropriation ties to the 62 screen. So any activity to GL 3100 is going to show up as BT12 cash revenues on the 62 screen. The agency budget is the 61 screen. It's also going to show up as cash revenue there. Cash control is the 63 screen. It's not going to show up on the cash control. 3100 isn't tracked there. GL 0065 is, but 3100 is not. It'll have the document table, which is the 64 screen, whether or not it posts there, the grant 66 screen, the project 80 screen. So just some more information, some background on how activity is tracked and reported on those financial inquiry screens. It does depend on the GL, whether it's going to show up on those screens or not. if we do that same process of looking at the roll up on the D14 screen, you could see this rolls up to fund balance, unreserved, undesignated fund balance for GL 3100. And then if we look at how that GL gap account class of 310 rolls up, it goes up to net position. So in the ACBR, it's reported as an equity type GL. And we have a lot more of resources where if you need more information about these GL accounts or want to do some more research on this yourself, in the RSTARS data entry guide, chapter 5 goes over all the descriptive profiles, any of the profiles that start with a D, like the D31 or the D23. If you look in chapter 5 under the descriptive profile section, you'll see each of those screens, and you can look up and see what are all the fields on those screens, what do they mean, what are valid values for those fields. We also have on our website the GL list. This, you can see all of the GLs that we have available in our system and how they roll up to the ACBR. The Oregon Accounting Manual is also a really useful resource. You can see all the balance sheet accounts, the GL accounts, and definitions of what type of activity is reported in each of those. Any questions?
We haven't had any questions come in as you've been going through this. I think it's been a great review of that screen. If you do have more questions, now's the time to type one in or get a hold of one of us afterwards and we'll get you some answers that you're looking for. But outside of that, thank you very much, Liz, for giving us some great information.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm going to talk really quickly about the expired warrant process, which just happens to be going along. We run this program about the same time that we're running you're all dealing with month 13. So you need to be aware that the XRR3 report will be generated electronically and available to any of the agencies that have expired warrants. That will happen. This report was generated earlier in April. So if you didn't have a report then, you are not going to suddenly have one in July, which would be the final production of this report for the year. What this report shows is it gives you what the account is as far as, is it general fund? Is it one of your other funds that you have requested to be opened for you? Shows the agency, the warrant number that hasn't been expired in the last 2 years, or cashed by June 30th of 2024. The amount, I believe it's the date written. Anyway, it's a very informative report for the agency. Like I said, it produced earlier in April. We'll again produce in July after the expired report is run on the 15th. It will be available for the agencies to view on this July 16th. We talk a lot about agency responsibility today, but here's the responsibility for the expired warrants. If monies are still owed to the vendor, the agency needs to make an effort to contact the payee. They need to confirm the payee's wish to receive payment, confirm the address, and then you need to complete a stop payment request and submit to SFMS and reissue the warrant. This is prior to the expired process in July. If monies are not owed to the vendor and you do not have the warrant in hand, please complete an AD-40 and submit to SFMS prior to July 15th. That way the warrant does not expire. It is canceled on the spot. You need to review the XRR3 report, identify the monies that are greater than $100, and determine if the monies are owed. Yes, if they're owed, then you want to place a stop payment and reissue. And then or you need to allow the expire to happen and have the monies reported to the Department of Treasury as unclaimed property. If it's not owed, submit the 8040 report for warrant cancellation without the warrant in hand. After July 15th, any warrants that have been expired will show up on the 44 screen with a status of E expired. Warrants that have expired on July 15th, please do not reissue payments at that point. Do not send any 8040 reports. Do not send stop payment forms. Once an E is in place, then it's being reported to this the Treasury Department, and just allow it to happen. The vendor at that point can redeem the monies from the Department of Treasuries by applying for it. If you need a link to the stop payment or cancellation forms, you can go to the DAS's website under our SFMS website under the DAS's. Anyway, there's the link. Anyway, and the related forms are, if definitions are, warrant stop payment is agency does not have the warrant in hand. It is owed to the vendor, so you place a stop payment and reissue. Warrant cancellation request form is the agency you do complete this when the agency have those warrants in hand, and then you put the form with that warrant and send it into SFMS. If it is 2 years older and the agency does not have it in hand, it is not owed to the vendor, then you want to do an 8040 and send that into SFMS to process. Our responsibility after July 15th is we will review and reconcile the XR reports and the XRP reports for any data errors. So we do reconciliation, make sure everything matches. Transfer the identified expired other funds to the Department of Treasury, to the Common School Fund, no later than July 31st of 2024. And then we need to properly format and submit the information to the Department Treasury unclaimed property via web portal no later than October 1st of 2024. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact me regarding the expired warrants process. I know I whipped through this pretty fast, but year end is much, much more important. We've been working on expired warrants, or at least you should have started working on expired warrants starting in April. Any questions?
And by the way, this lovely lady in red is Carlene Hancock with SFMS.
Oh, hi.
I don't think we got your introduction in there this morning. We did have a question come in. What is the actual DAFR report number for expired warrants? And I know it's a little bit different than we're used to for DAFR reports, right? So what is the name of the?
It is the XRR3.
Rolls off the tongue.
It does, doesn't it? Woo!
All right, that's all the questions we have, Carlene. Thank you so much. Okay, I think
The next
lost.
person is Scott Wood. He's our newest SFMS analyst so hi, Scott.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a good day. Hey, here today I'll be talking about the DAPR 6530 highlight. First and foremost, can I get a thumbs up for everyone that's seen this report for, and a shocked face for everyone that hasn't, or a surprised face? Okay, hey, then I think this presentation will be very helpful then. And so today I'll be talking about the DAPR 6530, also known as the Trial Balance by Fund. This report or it presents the GL account balances of a fund at a given time. Put a pin, and in that we will be defining a given time at a later date. You prepare this report before working on any of your financial statements, and I'll present each of the GL accounts that comprise the balance sheet and the statement of activities, though not necessarily in the order on those two statements. And the mechanics of it are it's here to show you the closing amounts of each GL account in your fund, the total debits and credits for the fund, organized by prior balance, current transactions, and ending balances. As keep in mind, this report is less about organizing these accounts into the reports they need to go into and more about monies in to monies out. This report can be ordered on a specific date, weekly basis, monthly basis, and requestable by all. So requestable by us and requestable by you. Who choose which option works best for you. That will depend on how often you want to check in on these account balances, but it is very useful when combined with the next slide. Intervals. It can be ordered to cover the appropriation year, a defined period, and a range of dates. It's, for starters, if you're ordering this report every week, I don't think you'd want on the monthly interval to go into that, nor would you want on a weekly basis report every month. These are just tools to have you define how broad the report is and how often you want to check in on that report. You also have level options like agency group, agency, and organization level 3 to 9 are specific to your agencies. One thing to know about agency group is that it groups similar agencies together, like I believe the Department of Forestry and the Oregon and Forestry Department are grouped together. The water boards and watershed departments are grouped together. So you can order this specifically for your agency, but if your agency is part of a group, then you can order this statement to cover fund balances as for the 2 or 3 of you that are together. Or program options, and you've got function, you've got activity, and you've got the agency's specific levels. So you can drill down deep into what activity you want to see is affecting the fund balance and for the week, for the month, for the day. Okay. It's a very powerful tool to get the information that you need. And once we get into level options, this is pretty sparse in comparison. We have the comptroller GL accounts and the agency GL accounts. No in between, no fuss, no muss. And so I know we went through this fast, and one thing I want to mention is that as part of this report, you will have a percent year elapsed in the top left-hand corner just to tell you how much time since the start of the year this report has been covering. And so can I have some reactions? Thumbs up for you're ready to deal with this report now. Surprised face for you are going to need a little more time. I'm digging through everything. Well, that's a good thing. I have additional resources for everyone. On the top link is the specific PDF regarding this report. It goes into much more details than this PowerPoint presentation could. I hope you use it to your advantage. And the bottom link is for chapter 1 of our reports Arts guide, which will hopefully explain everything in these slides a little bit better. I thank you for your time. And any questions on DAFR 6530, aka the agency fund trial balance?
Thank you, Scott. I do not have any questions that have come in. Thank you very much.
Take it away, Julie.
All right. So as you know, my passion is the R-Stars training program. If you haven't worked with me in that arena before, as the trainer, that's one of my primary jobs, and I love it dearly. So I'm going to take a moment to remind everybody about the training program and to remind people that it's never too late to start it, to pick it back up, or to review something that's in it. So it's not just for new state accounting employees. It's for people that are entering. I've got a list of it there. Are you doing a new type of transaction on your job? You have new job responsibilities. It requires you to use R-Stars in a new way. Perhaps you change agencies and your new one uses encumbrances. And what the heck is an encumbrance if you came from an agency that never used one? Someone who wants to understand how a T code determines all the multitude of things it determines for the transaction that it's used with. Someone who has a new need for inquiry screens. I can find that out on screen number 63. I didn't even know that. So there's all kinds of inquiry screens you might learn about. And also, if you maybe took training a little while ago, like me, I actually pull up my training materials from when I took the courses a few years ago, because I'll be coming across something. I'm like, I know it. I remember learning about that in training, and it was a great example of it. And I'll pull those materials back out and use them as a reference. This is a list of all the different courses that are available to you through the R-Stars training program. And I've kind of broken them out here, indicated a few different categories. The first two are prerequisite courses. You must complete those two courses to take further courses in the sequence. Once you have passed them, however, and it's on your transcript of having passed them, you can take any other course throughout the series. For brand new employees, I, of course, always recommend take them all, take them in the order they come, and build on one another. It's a great, solid foundation for you moving forward. But sometimes people don't have that luxury to take all these different courses at once. So we can also work with, okay, well, what types of transactions are you going to enter into R-Stars? Let's jump to that particular course, and then you can fill in later as you have time later on in your career. The third category there are the T codes. And, I mentioned how powerful those little codes are. You can see it actually, we cover them in 4 different courses because there's so much information and we want to unpack all that in a logical, thorough way. The final 2 courses cover the inquiry screens in R-Stars. So there's quite a few of these screens. Again, so we separated into 2 different courses, and you learn which the screens are, what they present to you, what you can find out on them, and also go through some exercises of actually kind of hands-on using them and getting the results that you're looking for. If you are new to the program, you can go into Workday Learning and enroll in the R-Stars training program. You can search for those words. If you have taken a course before, I have an example on this slide of what your Workday Learning page should resemble. And in there somewhere, there should be the training program, unless you completed all 12 courses, and then you can search just like a new enrollee would. But if you have only taken some of the courses and haven't completed them all, it should be on your continued learning window of your learning page. So you can click right where you left off and start taking the courses again. I really want to emphasize this is a big time commitment, and I understand that, all these different courses. But if you can keep plugging away on it, it will help you in the long run. and you will be able to cover all these different courses. Just don't give up. Maybe talk with your manager or your lead worker. Hey, can we work in this in time, 3 hours a month, few hours a month, and just plug away, and you can get through these courses over time. So that's my plug for the training program. And now we'll bring back Scott, and he is going to go through the warrant expedite process for us. Scott?
Thank you, Julie. One caveat before I get into the warrant expedite process: what I'm about to describe here should be used sparingly. We can't have every warrant be an expedite. Good planning of payments is key to good government, in my opinion. So, everything you learn here will be useful. I just don't want it used every single day. Okay. Hey, our reasons to expedite a payment are simple. Oh, we have an incorrect future due date because it was entered, or initially it can't be changed with US UC 17 accounting transaction 3. So you expedite the warrant so that it can get out that day. Okay. And the second reason is the warrant is needed the same day. For whatever reason, we need the warrant out now. How it was entered in late. That it was missed in another cycle. Oh, we just need it out now. Requirements to expedite a warrant. First and most obvious is your agency has to have the cash in order to pay the warrant. If you don't have the cash, it will roll over into the regular process. Thus, the rest are a bit more technical. Oh, the batch needs to be in ed mode 2. The disbursement method indicator needs to be expedite. You can either do this on the 41st screen or the batch header, or you have to do this as you're making the batch. The 41st screen is after the batch is made and you want to change the disbursement method indicator. In order to release this batch, you'll need a UC 28 or 98 with a DMI of 3. The payment and distribution types must be the same in each suffix for the voucher. Mail codes must match in each suffix for the voucher, and the PDTs must contain a direct deposit. This is only for printing out a physical warrant, not any direct deposits. And so, if you do everything right and you have a PDT of R, the warrant will be returned to the agency for mail out of town via pack tracks, in town via the afternoon shuttle. Please prioritize expediting warrants in town, just because trying to get warrants out of town can be a bit of a hassle with mailing and all that. If you have a PDT of M, it'll be mailed directly to the vendor from publishing and distribution. Physical pickup the warrant. This one's a bit of a wall, but I think we can get through this. As the authorized warrant signer will email publishing and distribution no later to noon to pick up the warrant, and you can send the email to these following addresses: date when and you expect an expedited warrant and want to physically pick it up. Provide the name of the authorized signer. Will be good to go. Please pick it up between 2:45 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. at 550 Airport Road Southeast. Ring the buzzer at the glass sliding doors at the east end of the building. Show your ID and sign line for the warrant. Now, here's the thing I'm more into because I'm an SFMS analyst. Just what kind of errors can go wrong? If you have an expedite error in batch add mode 2 with the message can't change the approved batch, then you can use a user with UC17 and account transaction 3 or 4, or to make the changes. It will not be able to release the batch, but will make the necessary changes for the batch to process, and then someone can go in with UC 28 or 98 with the accounting transaction indicator of 3 or 4, or to release the batch. And here are some simple special scenarios for you to keep in mind in case something goes wrong. If you need to clear the expedited destination, change the disbursement method indicator, or DMI, to H. Hold on the 41st screen, and then delete the batch the next day. If you accidentally say you need this as expedited when you don't, this is the cleanest way to do it. It'll help you out in the long run to remember it. And the final thing I want to talk about today is if you code the document correctly, no warrant produced, even after releasing the batch and everything, then simply put, the agency did not have enough cash. You can replenish the cash the next day and have the warrant release. It will cause some timing issues, but everything will be okay. I know that was lightning quick, and I'm going to regret saying this, but questions on the warrant expedite process? I assume we have a lot.
Actually, we do not. Oh, I just had one come in. Who to email at P&D? Steve Knight should be replaced with Tyler Easton. So thank you, Alan. On the slide that had the contacts for P&D, there's an incorrect name. So I will get that corrected for the PDF version that we post to our website. Just to let everybody know, if you have a version of your own that you're saving, you can make that change. Otherwise, it will be changed on the PDF version uploaded to the website.
Thank you very much, Alan. And last but certainly not least, we have Aaron Wallace to talk about OBI.
Hi, I'm Aaron Wallace, and I wanted to start by thanking the SFMS team for allowing me to speak a little bit about what's happening with the Data Mart. Of course, lots of things have been changing, but mainly around the Workday data and not so much SFMS. However, I still want to pass along a few reminders and make sure everybody is on the same page. Well, let's start with the trainings that are available in Workday Learning. There are 4 current trainings, and as you can see here, I highly recommend taking each training as it will help you get started with OBI, IEE, as well as the Data Mart. Also, if you haven't reviewed these trainings in a while, you can always go back and watch them again. It can be a good refresher. Recently, I actually had a few people want to learn about how to schedule a file to run automatically. And this is actually called creating an agent, and instructions can be found in the very first training listed here. So I'm also actually in the process of creating a couple of new trainings, one on dashboards within OB, and then another one about HIM training. So be on the lookout for those coming soon. As you can see on the bottom of this slide, if you run into any issues, please start with emailing datamartsupport@das.oregon.gov. This inbox has coverage even when I'm out of the office, and I do like to take vacations, so it's better to send it there. So don't worry, I have a great backup team, and they will be able to answer your questions. As a note, if you're sending in anything about OB, please include the file directory and name as a minimum, so we can actually review it properly, because we can go in there and check it out right away. And of course, if you have any other details, especially screenshots, that'll be very helpful. Here's some other good reminders. We actually have 2 OB environments, test and prod, and you actually use the same username and password for each environment, but you must have proper security set up to access them, and these would be separate requests. Access for the regular prod goes to SARS, your SARS analyst, and then or your security, SARS system security, and then the test environment goes to me. In addition, we only use the test environment for either admin or special projects. So once the special project is over, we actually remove your test access. And just as a note, if you receive any error messages just trying to access one of these sites, then that normally means you don't have the proper security set up. Or it could also mean that your agency has a firewall issue, and you will have to contact your agency tech support, and they'll send the information to their firewall team. And please make sure to email right away if you can't get to the site to DataMart support. The next reminder on this slide talks about passwords and only being available, they're only valid for 90 days in OB. So just remember that, and there is no alert. I know a lot of people think it's just going to alert them as it's done, but no. So make sure to put a pop-up reminder on your Outlook calendar so you don't forget. Next on the list is a reminder about the OB1 repository, which the catalog directory is shown here. So please make sure to check it out. If you haven't, I bet you there is an analysis file in there that will really help you. This could actually save you a lot of time and effort, especially if there's a file already providing the data you desire. And don't be shy, go in there, open the file up, and save the file to your own directory in OB and alter it as needed. I mean, the repository files were created to be more of a starting point than the final product. So, you know, all agencies are different, so we wanted to make sure to get you started correctly. In addition, we highly recommend that you share files with between users and agencies. This query tool makes it so easy to share a file, and it's just a great feature. So the agency folders are there to separate the files by agency, but also to make it easy to share as you have access to all those files. On this slide, there's some other good reminders. First, do not combine subject areas in OB. What we've done from a tech side is actually have my tech support create subject areas that have proper joins on them already. And once you actually start trying to combine other subject areas on your own, then that just doesn't work. And the query won't run properly. And if processed, it will bog down the system, which of course, we don't want. Next is about filtering. Now, we must, I highly stress this, we must remember that to include filters on every single query, okay? Even if you think it's a small query or whatever, no, always put a filter on it and start with agency and some kind of date. Now, dates normally, the best one to use as shown here is fiscal year. Okay, now AY is still acceptable, but fiscal year is the best. Now, if you don't do this, this will greatly increase your chance for an out of control type of query that can cause major slowness for all. You know, we only have one server, and now we can actually see if somebody's running bad queries because everybody gets slowed down. So last note on this slide mentions the Workday fields. Now, as I know, this is an SFM user group, but we've been talking a lot about the Workday and payroll information. But there is a great documentation on the DataMart website. And let me just show you here a little snippet of the site, which not only has the Workday table information in detail and describes it. So you can, if you're looking for different fields or whatever, just go right there. That's a great document right there to click on, and an Excel file or a PDF file will open up for you. But there's also the Workday calendar at the bottom of that snippet, and that displays the report effective dates. Now, the report effective date field really helps to get you the correct run 1 and run 2 data. As you may or not be aware, the old pay period end field in OSPS that everybody used to love is totally different in the current Workday environment. So when querying Workday data, you should be filtering using the report effective date as to pull data optimally. Okay. So here's a slide of what is new and coming down the pike for the DataMart. So first item on the list here is very exciting. We now have him on the Workday side of the DataMart. We started as of December 2023, run 1. and it will continue to be part of the CECD table in the data mart for the foreseeable future. What is nice about this is that you can actually now see HIM broken down by each agency's data. While previously you would only see all of the HIM data located in Agency 443 on the SFMS side. Now, if you need additional information or explanation as to why all the HIM is in Agency 443, please contact the Workday team as they can explain why that came about in a better way than I can. And as a side note, in the not too distant future, I do plan to do a short training demonstrating some HIM queries. So next on this list is other payroll expenses or OPE project. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this because Jennifer spoke about it earlier. I was actually unaware of how much detail she was going to be presenting, but that's great. She did a good job. But just it's great to be able to coordinate with SFMS and Workday to create a new process to bring this data into the data mart with additional loads that are outside Run 1 and Run 2. And as a reminder, this new data will have an OP type code so that it can easily be queried. And currently, all the data is still in the test environment only as we are continuing to finalize the process. And I also wanted to give a big shout out to Rhonda Bachman, who has been leading this project. She's done just a wonderful job. Also on this slide, I have a few items that are coming down the pike. First, a work request to add a new field called SFMA period end date. This will be awesome when completed, as it helps to bring back that old pay period end date that users seem to love in OSPS. We're going to actually create it one of our own and call it SFMA period end date. So that'll really help users be familiar with what they used to do. And finally, there's a work request to add the DO4 Orbits XREF field to the Workday data. Now, it will be included on the PCA profile table, so you can add it to any Workday queries that contain the PCA profile field, which includes the CECD subject area. So be on the lookout for both of those work requests. That's all I have for today, and I appreciate your time. So any questions?
Thanks, Aaron. We're so glad you could join us. I did have a couple questions that came in. I believe this is in reference to the test environment of OB. The question is, what kind of special projects? You mentioned that you utilize for special projects.
Well, that could be any special projects. I mean, the OPE just happened to be the one we're doing right now. That, is a total special project that came about out of the blue. But anything else that might come about, we'll start using the test environment if needed. I know that we will be taking the test environment over soon to do some administrative testing once the OPE stuff is done. So it can just vary.
And then we had a question come in. I know we're a few minutes over, so I understand if people need to leave. But the question was, can you give an example of combining subject areas? I don't know if you have a description of what that looks like.
Yeah. I could probably share my screen for a moment. If you want, I could jump to that.
I'll tell you what,
or I could just describe it.
Yeah, let's just describe it if you don't mind.
Yeah, so let's say you got the all accounting event and then the archive accounting event, and people are like, well, look at those. They're exactly the same thing. I want to combine them and do different stuff. Or the all accounting event and the GL detail. You're like, well, wait a minute, I want to do both of those and I want to combine those. Those are both financial tables and they have similar data in them. So when you combine those, and there is a button even in OB that is available that says combine, it just doesn't work. It starts duplicating data or eliminating data, and the queries just don't run properly. And actually, they pretty much run out of control. So anytime you do any kind of combining on your own with that button in our current setup, it's going to fail.
Thank you very much. And thank you again for joining us.
You are very welcome.
All right. That wraps up our SFMS user group today. And just a shout out, yes, we are now part of the Office of the State Controller. Couldn't let today go by without putting that out there. So SARS and SFMS are going to be together under one roof. And being as such, we're going to hopefully have some great ways of combining some trainings for folks. The first one of these is going to be on May 13th for GASB 87 training being held at the Oregon Employment Department's auditorium. So please check that out. I know there was an email that was sent out by Rob Hamilton on Friday. If you haven't heard about it, contact your SARS analyst or your SFMS analyst and we'll get you the information. And you can still access all of the SFMS web pages, including our Contact Us webpage, if you want to get a hold of any of us here at SFMS. Thanks for coming. Have a great day. Looks like the clouds have moved in here in Salem, but we live in Oregon. So have a great day, everyone, and thanks again.